Jesus Christ. Amen. It's wonderful to be gathered together after I had a short breather, after we took the time and we went all the way through the book, through the Gospel of Luke, as we went all the way, going from Jesus' birth to his death, to his resurrection, to his ascension, as he ascended into heaven, as he goes to prepare a place for us. Now, as we go, we're going to go to we would say, and kind of the ascension is the hinge here. We now go to the second part of this compendium, of these two books that are connected intimately. As we go into the book of Acts. And this week, we're going to be looking broadly kind of at the whole book of Acts and how do we look at the book? How do we look at this blessing? And then starting next Monday, we'll start going bit by bit all the way through the book of Acts, as it starts with Jesus' ascension and it goes to Paul in Rome. So just with that kind of introduction there, we begin this morning looking at what is the book of Acts. And the simplest beginning portion is that it is the companion book to the Gospel of Luke. The Gospel of Luke ends, Jesus ascends into heaven. Acts begins with Jesus' ascension into heaven. And so just by that nature in and of itself, you can very much see how it now goes forward. All of what Jesus has done for us and our salvation in Luke. Now, how does that go forward as we look at the beginning of the church? And so we get to the book of Acts, sometimes called the Acts of the Apostles. Very much this is the early church. And kind of the two main foci of it, you begin with Peter and his beginning of the ministry and the beginning of the church and the first days and Pentecost. And then it leads on to Paul. And we come to Paul against the church, him becoming a Christian. And then the one who persecuted the church is now the one proclaiming the church to the Gentiles. That's the basic overview and point of the church, of this book. And how is God at work? And in it, and especially in the first chapters, we see what is important to the church. What is important? What do they view as what we need to be about? And we can very well take that as well and say, this is what the early church viewed as the most important. And really, it is the most important for all of our life. It is the most important for our life as a church and as Christians who belong to the church. Remembering that faith is what I have, absolutely. Faith is what we have, absolutely. It's both me and us together that God brings and puts forward. Now, knowing that Luke wrote this book, one fascinating part that we come into here is we know that all that first book, the Gospel of Luke, he got the information, he put it together, he went to the sources, he brought it, and he put together that incredible gospel. Now we come to Luke, and fascinatingly, you look at the pronouns that are used there, because in the first portion, and Peter did this, and they did this. Once we get to the latter part of Luke, though, he changes the pronouns from they did to we did. In other words, you get to the latter part of the book of Acts, and Luke was there. And you can, by how he uses his pronouns, whether it's and we, meaning he was there, or them, you can tell when Luke is now a part of the action and what's taking place and when he's not there. Now, finally, getting to understand kind of when was this written, probably between 60 and 62 AD. This took place with many and various ways that Luke talks before Jerusalem is destroyed. That'd be 70 AD. So it would have been pre-70 AD. Now, Luke also ends with Paul in Rome, kind of as he's under that 2 years of house arrest in Rome. So it has to be after the last action took place in the book. However, it is before one obvious thing that would be in there would have been the martyrdom of Peter. That took place in 64 AD, and probably Paul 66 AD. So you're talking time frame pre-70, pre-Peter's martyrdom, pre-Paul's martyrdom. So you're probably talking 60 to 62 AD when Acts was put together, written down, and put forward. Now, as we go forward throughout this week, looking at the Lord's work in the book of Acts, and kind of from a top down, how does this all fit together before we get into looking at all the trees in the forest? May the Lord bless us and keep us looking at the broadness of God's work in his church in Acts, today, and forevermore. What is God's purpose for his church? In his holy name we